Signs of the Southland, Sunday, March 27th, 2022. Mr. Grant, I hear you've acquired a new shirt from your travels this weekend.
Yes, I have. It's from the SO Club, which is a great establishment, and
Not
it's
a
on the
sponsor.
back is some guy giving a thumbs up with a drink, and he has two, I guess, hounds of some
Bloodhounds?
sort. Yeah, in like this plastic pool because love plastic pools, and it says due to budget cuts, this is the new Clemson swim team, which I just
Woof.
I couldn't pass that up.
That's rough. That's a good joke. That's rough.
That's it's one of my token issues. I couldn't not just go and buy it from what is a great establishment as well.
Technically, it wasn't budget cuts. It was reassorted. It was, what was it? Realigning of institutional priorities. I bet that's how it was worded,
Which is lame as hell.
which is we only care about football and occasionally softball.
Well, softball exists because swimming doesn't. So, oops.
Bum 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 bum. Brown. Shall we get into it? Shall we get on with our particularly voluminous run sheet today?
Honestly, it
Someone
looks
decided to
shorter.
add.
It looks shorter, given how many skips are on here.
That's true. Someone did decide to add every single club sport that exists at Tech onto the run sheet. I wonder who did that.
It wasn't me, I'll tell you that.
Totally wasn't me. Totally. But let's start in the club sports circuit. Anyway, club golf, which didn't know was a thing until earlier today. And when I went looking, is in fourth place at their South Region tournament for the spring. That was after round one, which was yesterday. So let's take a look at where they are after round two. They are still fourth.
Yeah,
Cool.
good for them.
Other
Solid.
participants in this tournament: Tennessee, Athens, and Auburn. So pretty good golfing competition. I don't really know enough about these teams to say how good or bad that is, but in terms of people that would play golf and go to those colleges, shouldn't be too bad.
I was going to say, considering this is a sport we didn't know existed like yesterday at this time, I think that sounds all right. And I have no further comment.
Let me riddle you this. Would you have further comment on club hockey's season, especially their last game, their 2-6 loss to South Carolina in the quarterfinals of the Fed Cup?
That I would. I do have more opinions about them as our colleague, friend, etc. Carter, who is a wonderful from the Rumble Seat guy, but always very sharp. He posited before this game, it was against South Carolina. I wonder if the third time is the charm. And it turns out that the third time was not, in fact, the charm. We just learned the same thing that we had already learned, the last couple of days. So I guess that's life, but
Yeah. They had
no,
a really good
they had a
year.
great year. They way outplayed expectations, I think, especially in the first year of this whole CHF dealio. But to go to nationals, to win the pool, to score an upset, I mean, yeah, it sucks not to win, but I don't really get how you can ask for much more from them than what
I
we
mean, you
got.
make the field of eight. You make the field of eight as a 14 seed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about it personally.
Yep, I agree.
Uh,
I agree.
Rolling right down along the line, another team that we found existed today was Women's Ultimate Frisbee at Tech, who were in Austin for the Context tournament. They finished ninth. They were seeded ninth. They lost a close one to Northeastern in the play-ins for the quarterfinal games, but then they took care of business versus Dartmouth and Ohio State to secure ninth place. Any high-level thoughts?
Not in particular. I have not followed them much since one of my friends who's on the team graduated. So Don't know much about that, but holding seed is always good. This is great podcast content. We know so much about all of this.
You came so prepared for this. I will say that at both of something I learned that I thought was very interesting is that both of the Ultimate Frisbee teams do not have directly Georgia Tech related names. Like they don't compete as Georgia Tech. They compete I think the women's team competes as the Rec or Ultimate Rec, and the men's team competes as a tribe called Tech.
Yep.
I don't know if that's like a Ultimate Frisbee tradition of sorts. It looks like a lot of other club programs have it similarly, but it's interesting. It's an interesting little quirk.
Yeah, I knew that the men were like the tribe, but I didn't know it was a tribe called Tech. But that once they have results out there, I might have a little bit more opinions about. I've known them a little bit longer, so.
Fair enough. They did not have any action this past week, as did Jake's favorite program, the Georgia Tech Club swim program. Let's move on to the first diamond. Well, technically the second chronologically. You get the point. On the flats softball, they were undefeated 5-0 on the week versus Dartmouth and Syracuse. Just to go over the results really quick, game one versus Dartmouth was an extremely late winner. Tech won 1-0, backed by excellent pitching from Chandler Dennis. And then game two was a similar pitching performance from Sophia Voiles, a 9-1 win, run rule win. Versus Syracuse, the first two games went down 4-2, both Georgia Tech wins. Clutch hitting in both of those powered the day, both days technically. And then earlier today, just a couple minutes ago, Kennedy Cowden slid in at home on a wild pitch to win, plate the winning run for Tech 2-1 in the ninth inning. Any opening thoughts while I get all that word salad out?
I mean, I think it's very interesting that this is one of those cases where you can win and it can still hurt your RPI because Dartmouth, no offense to them and Cuse, but they're not quite as good. But taking care of business 5-0 is tremendous. I meant to say this last week, but Tech hitting 20 wins even before this week was done put them equal to what last year's did. And last year's team lost 26 games, right? So they're not that they're playing with house money, because obviously you want to keep winning and doing those great things, but they're ahead of schedule, and this is the most ahead of schedule with a lot of runway left team that I think we have, right? We've already played FSU and Duke and got that UGA game in there, and I really think, and especially we can circle back on this in a little bit. I got to see Clemson's team up close and personal, but until we run into them, I think Tech, knock on wood, kind of in the driver's seat, really.
Do you have their RPI on hand?
Yeah, they haven't updated it since the 24th, so it doesn't include the weekend results. But Tech was sitting at 36 before taking the 3 games.
So they're in the field right now. They're in the tournament field, and I feel pretty comfortable right now with how they're playing. I think this weekend was pretty exceptional. The only long-term concern that I see is that, and I was talking to you about this earlier, and I want to see if you wanted to chime in on record, but it seems a little unsustainable to run Dennis and Nelliman into the ground, switching them off basically in your weekend series. They gave Voiles a start versus Dartmouth in game 2, which was really good to see, just to run someone else out there. But I mean, Nelliman threw over 120 pitches today, or over 110 pitches today. Dennis came in relief, and they've been flip-flopping. Like they flip-flopped yesterday and the day before too. So I think you need to start working a third arm in there, and I think Voiles has at least earned a start in an ACC game at this point.
I'm going to come at this from a slightly different angle and come at it with the point of, before last Sunday, she had only pitched like 3 or 4 innings the entire year. And then she played, basically all of 2 games in 3 days. And you don't want to burn your young arms out that quick. So I say give her the weekend off is just fine. And I'm encouraged, because I think, we'll be able to see some more of that this week, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I think given the situation, you're right. You don't want to tire out a younger arm, but at the same time, maybe this weekend we see a more traditional three pitcher rotation at Notre Dame. Any other thoughts on the series, team comp, as we head towards the business end of the season?
I mean, you know this because we obviously talk outside of the world of podcasting, but in terms
We
of
do. That's news to me.
in terms of softballing, one only has so many hours in a weekend, I guess, to watch, and I know that folks who listen to this do rely on us to get them that good information. But at the end of the day, I I can tell you a lot more about my opinions about Clemson and Louisville from this weekend than I can about Tech and Cuse, just from the simple fact of being out this weekend and the Dartmouth game starting while I was at work. And we love a guy who's committed to the grind, I guess. But that's
We'll
life.
talk.
I wish I had more
think,
to say because this team's been a lot of fun, but this week was just not. You can follow along on your phone, but I'm sure you got a little bit more of the vibes actually watching the games. So
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that Clemson team. Tech will see them coming up near the end of the season, but you got a chance to look at them up close. They played Louisville and took that series 2-1 at home. What did you think about the Tigers?
I think I want to lead with this, and that is they have three very, very legitimate pitching arms, which is not something that I think gets put out there a lot. And we are folks who are guilty of this as anyone, of just going Kegel, who I've taken to call the franchise, because they basically built an entire team around her, convinced her to come to Clemson for a year with no team, and really built around that in particular. But even when she's not in the circle, two very solid other options. Definitely not something to sleep on in terms of pitching, because they'll get you. It's going to be tough to get runs off of that offense, especially with potent but young squads. I think it's a lot more reliable. They say defense or pitching wins championships. I think Clemson positions themselves really well just off of that alone.
Yeah. What did you think about some of their defensive talent? All right. I think we saw some. I think in this series we saw a little bit. I mean, it was a really even series. A lot of these games, or both the first and the last game, were really close, and then Clemson kind of blew it open in game two. But this game this series on both of those first two games, or the ending two games, came down to keeping it clean defensively. So what did you kind of see from their defense, and what do you think Tech could maybe take advantage of or look to exploit?
Yeah, I mean, you got to limit errors against this team. I think what did Louisville in on Friday night was in the fifth inning, just giving them a couple extra outs, and even today at the end of this game, if anyone was tuned into that before Tech softball on the ACC network. But how do I want to put this? You can't give them the cheapies, right? And it did hurt a little bit. Louisville got a little bit screwed with a bang tag play right at third base. But fortunately, I was staring right at the play because my seat was right here, and about 8 feet in front of me was the base. I think that would have changed that game. I think they very much could have walked away as winners. But even then, like I said, Clemson's fairly potent at the plate. They had a lot of home run power that they showed off Saturday, and you really can't give them any extra opportunities because they will. They will take advantage, and I think that's something that we've seen all year, right? But that being said, I think anyone, obviously Florida State and Duke, I guess Virginia Tech can be in that, are kind of a cut above. But anyone in the conference between Clemson, you got your Notre Dame, you got Georgia Tech, you got Louisville, you got North Carolina, trying to think if there's anyone else. Maybe Boston College at the bottom of that fringe, but or Pitt. Pitt can tussle in there too. Anyone can beat any one of those teams on a given day. It's all about limiting your mistakes, which pitcher you're going to throw, and that's the thing too, right? It's taken 1 out of 3 is what getting that 1 win means, but it's about turning those into series wins, and I think that's where, in particular, the FSU's and Clemson's and Dukes and Virginia Tech's with their large stable of arms and good bats really get you. But the franchise is definitely the real deal. So that's a little bit scary, but we'll get there.
Just to bookend the discussion on Clemson, that series is at Clemson. That's April 29th through May 1st. Give us an idea of what that ballpark feels like, what it looks like, the atmosphere, just to prepare ourselves a little bit well in advance.
They sold out their entire stadium before the season even started, and they're already talking about expanding it.
All right, noted. Do you remember the capacity?
Let me pull it up 1 sec. I had it up. Give me 2 seconds. I'm flipping my monitor back to that. Their McWhorter Stadium capacity is 1,600, almost even. A lot of that is seated. There is a hill in left field that people can sit on and bring chairs and whatnot. But even that's inside the gate line. So there are literally no freebies in Clemson for getting in the building.
Absolutely none. I'm looking at a view from behind home plate right now. You can see the football palace off to the left in the far back of left field, and then a massive parking lot in right field.
Yeah, you can see
that's neat.
You can see the indoor track facility off in the distance too.
Yeah, and then I think there's an outdoor football practice field as well, right in center field. Obviously can't see behind it. So, I mean, it's a nice little ballpark. It looked really good on TV. But it'll be interesting. I think this will be Tech's first trip up to Clemson.
Didn't we do one right before the pandemic? I can't remember.
I can check that because I have the softball schedule open. That would have been, 19 to 20?
Yeah.
They did. No.
Nope. That was the weekend.
Were supposed to go. It was the weekend that everything shut down. They were supposed to go to Clemson. Or no, Clemson was visiting us, which means that Clemson would have played here last year.
Uh-huh.
Or we would have gone to Clemson last year, but no, we did not play Clemson last year either because it was we did. But those
we hosted
also
them in FSU. We played 6 games in 4 days. I very clearly remember that.
Yeah, I remember that too now. I just scrolled through it very fast. That's odd. This will be Tech's first trip to Clemson then. But that is at the end of next month. Wednesday, Tech softball will play Kennesaw State like the baseball team did last week. We'll get to that in a minute. And then the weekend series will be at Notre Dame in South Bend. Do you have sort of a?
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Do you have a high level scouting report for us to discuss?
Yeah, Domers have been on the up and up. They've built a quiet, I'd say quietly, a nice little program up there in South Bend since they got into the conference. I think the whatchamacallit, Deanna Gumpf. I always mess up her name, but she kind of not really plateaued, but went 2016-17 and 17-18, 34 and 23 both years. And if that's your low, that's pretty darn good after coming over from the Big East. But that's playing an ACC schedule, and no offense to the teams we got over from the Big East. It's definitely got to be interesting being a long time Louisville or Notre Dame or I guess Pitt and Syracuse too, but those two in particular that kind of ruled that conference for a long time. Kind of just being one of the guys, I guess, one of the teams. But if you really want to look, last year's .793 win percentage It was a nice return to form for them. So I think they've been building off that this year. They're really a fringy top 25 team. I don't think they can really complain too much about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Notre Dame, notably, also has a very successful baseball team this year. As we look over to the other side of what is that? First Drive, Fowler Street, First Fowler Street, Fowler
Fowler
Street.
Street.
Yes. Geography is not my strong suit. Neither are segues. The baseball team was in Raleigh, not North Carolina State, the state of North Carolina. Yes, they were in Raleigh this past weekend. But before that, they played a home and home versus Kennesaw State. They split that series. They won the away leg and then lost the home leg very close. And then they got swept in Raleigh. So let's talk about this real quick, because I think a lot of the same themes that we've been talking about all season kind of came to roost in this series.
Yeah, it's I don't know. This team kind of shoveled a lot of coal into the hype train engine, but I think we're kind of back to square one on this almost, right? Like this is exactly what we feared, and you can only get not get lucky, but like I guess cardiac jackets your way into wins for so long, because there's times when the errors are going to eat you, or you're just not going to have enough from the bats. And thinking about the Kennesaw game in particular, you score 12 runs, you think you have a pretty good shot at winning the game.
And yet,
I don't want to put anything on anyone's in particulars, but it's definitely got to be a tough feeling right now, right? Because it's especially with the first two games of this series, 8-6 and 6-5 are not terribly lopsided scores, right? You're in the ball games, you're not melting down and blowing up. I think perhaps especially our fan base is one that's full of very smart people with long memories. I don't think that I've completely shaken, at least personally, the Wake Forest thwomping from last weekend yet. And I think maybe that, I guess, colors my opinion about this just a little bit. But yeah, it's tough. This team needs to get its mojo back. And I don't think rolling into the UVA series, they have just been incredible all year. I don't know if this is a get your mojo back weekend,
Yeah, it's certainly not a get right weekend at all. They will get a get right game versus Charleston Southern on Tuesday, but I think the injuries are also a big factor here. Chandler Simpson is still out dealing with some injury issues, and he'll probably be out next weekend as well per the ACC network. Jake DeLeo is still out. You saw Mr. Romano I really wanted to call him Ray Romano, but I know that's not his name. Nick Romano, sorry, at second base today. And I think he got the start yesterday as well. We saw some shuffling of the rotation this weekend. We saw Chance Huff still get the start on Friday, but then Cody Carwile gets the start on Saturday. He put together 3 really good innings until things got squirrely. And then Marquise Grissom was also pretty good today. I think he had one of his best starts of the season today, despite what came right after he left the game. So there are good arms, there are good performances there. They just don't all coalesce with the consistency that I think we want to expect from a team that is this stacked with talent, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. The expectations are high, and I think deservedly so.
And I still think that our preseason saying, or preseason prediction or preseason expectation of saying they need to host a regional or the season is a failure, I think that's still in play. I think that's still completely valid because they still have the talent there, and they still have another 20 some odd, 30 some odd games left in the season. I think it's just 20 to sort of work out some of these kinks on the mound. And I think they have the talent to do it, like I said, but you can only ride the reputation of that talent and some of those early season wins for so long, right? And I think you said that really well as well.
And that's the thing too, right? We have some great wins. Those are not going away, but you do have to pile them up just to get invited to the postseason, right? The expectation is postseason. The goal is, winning the Coastal, is hosting that regional. I mean,
and right now they're sitting, I think, at fourth in the Coastal, which is far off the pace. So UVA, I think, is leading the pack, and they'll get 3 games versus UVA this weekend or this next weekend to see who stacks up, and if UVA is for real. So it's going to be sort of a prove it weekend, I think, for this team as we head towards the back half of the year.
Well, and you can't get too far ahead of yourself either, too, because if you look at the standings on the Atlantic side, Louisville started off like what, 8-5, 7-5, something not so great like that. I'm going to pull it up and actually click on their name, so that way we are dealing with real numbers. But so yeah, they were 1-2, 3-3. Yeah, they were 3-3 to start the year, and since then they're 13-2. Every great team stumbles, and every great team goes through it a little bit. Tech's kind of injured. Tech's kind of figuring it out with respect to the bullpen. I think that's just kind of it's going to be life, right? It kind of has to be. It's not ideal to be 4-5 in conference, but you're still 4-5 in conference. You sweep Virginia, and you're on top of the Coastal at the end of this week. Like, that's obviously
things can change. Fortunes can change very quickly in some of these series.
And it's an opportunity to pile up some quality wins here. 6-9 is probably not where Tech would like to be. It's probably not where they should be, but they can make quick work of this week, and you're right back, I guess, on that pace that you had set out of the gate.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And let's move on to talk about another sport where pace setting is important: swimming and diving. Georgia Tech was at the NCAA Men's Swim and Dive Championships hosted by Georgia Tech at Macaulay Aquatic Center. Tech finished in the same place as the last year, 38 points, 21st place. I think at least this year, we thought they could do a little better. They had the potential to finish a little better, get in some more consolation finals. But it's still a good finish overall. It's still an impressive finish. What are your thoughts on this performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's solid, right? I think it's solid. I think it's a little bit telling to say that they kind of hit that result from last year. It's great to be 21st. That's what you want. You want to be in the mix for the top 25. But I think it shows that this team is maybe kind of hitting that historical high, right? You have Kyle Putis, you have Christian Ferraro coming back for their 5th year, for their COVID year, and you throw in a couple great freshmen into the mix. In particular, from the final day, we did have Merk Kilavus placing in the mile, and that's great to see too, right? But getting 6 points for finishing in 11th, you'd think that there might be a little bit more upward mobility for Tech, who've kind of really relied on Ferraro and Pamputis for a long time. But in terms of what adding that extra talent did to the team, it didn't really do too much else. Really, I think I don't want to be too harsh or anything like that, but I think maybe the expectation was maybe 20th or 18th or just getting in the mix a little bit more. And I think it's really telling when you see the difference between that and maybe some of the relay potential too. I think that's where probably that's most obvious.
Yeah, and I think the relays were where I was like, okay, well, there's room to improve here, and that's where we could have gained some more points because they were. But I think they had lower seed times than maybe some of their other competitors. They started out in the first 2 heats pretty consistently, so if you set if you have some of those higher seed times, you're in the mix in those third and fourth heats among the fastest groups in the nation. You're going to end up scoring points more often just because of your placement within those heats. So I think moving forward, that should be the goal. You're going to have some pretty good individual finishes or individual competitors, even with Pamputis and Ferraro moving on after this year, but making sure that your relays are competitive with the middle to top level of the A cut, right?
Yeah. And I think that's where we kind of circle back on this team having great star power, but not a ton of depth. And that relay is super exemplary of it, right? Great star power. Kai Pamputis, Mark Kilavus, Christian Ferraro, et cetera, all had fantastic weekends and fantastic weeks, great All-American statuses. We had 5 records fall. You can't really pass that up either. But, if you want to compete with the bigger boys, get out of that next tier. If you think about scoring wise, you got, teams that pick up amounts of points in the multiple hundreds. That's your Cal, Texas, Florida, NC State, Indiana, Arizona State, Stanford. I guess you can throw UGA in there too, because they're kind of right around 200. You got a next tier that's, you're scoring a couple dozen to 100 points towards 150. That's Ohio State, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Harvard, Bama, LSU, Purdue.
There's a Texas A&M guy in there too, I think.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next point. Is Tech is stuck in that third tier of, we got a couple tens of points. The multiple results scored, not just, oops, look, we got 4 points because one guy finished in 16th a couple times. No. So Tech has some clear, consistent contributors, but they really just can't break into that upper tier. And when you look at the schools that are our big measuring sticks, right? NC State, you look at Virginia Tech, Louisville, and you got UGA. As much as most people don't want to admit it, those 4 teams are the 4 teams that finished above Tech at ACCs this year, and it's your big rival. So, if that's what you're measuring yourself by the standards of, all couple hundred swimming programs in the country, Tech did pretty darn good. Top 10%, awesome, whatever. But in terms of, ACC, the best, they matched their ACC finish with 5th place, and they're not really touching where the rivals at, and I think that's where that difference lies.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what you're saying. It's building up that depth and having not just, let's say, the 2 guys in championship finals, but 5 guys in consolation finals and a couple of divers, and seeing that depth of that competitive depth expand over the next couple of years, I think has to be a consistent goal of this team as it moves forward.
Yep, I would agree.
Okay. Any notes on the media experience of covering these 2 meets? We didn't do a lot for the women's championships, at least in tweeting wise. I kind of regret that. But what was your take on having the meet at home, just like ACCs?
Well, the women
being there as a media member,
there wasn't a lot of tech action there. But in terms of just the pool, the experience, I do appreciate Tech, treating us like we know what we're doing, because I think that not to get the ego too big or anything like that, but it's great to see the press box more crowded than when it is just me alone. So it was great to go back to that place that we're very familiar with. Tech swam all in all pretty solid. Notching points is exactly what you need to and should be doing. And I guess I don't know. It's a shame that we only get it every 5 or 6 years, because I think Tech hosts really well. I think athletics knows what they're doing really well with these big meets. I think the pool facility, I'm a little bit biased. I think that they've always known how to throw a really great big meet, and it's I guess on to when's the next big thing Tech's hosting? Hopefully, like a baseball regional or a softball regional in the fall. Softball regional,
God willing.
Stretch, but
Yeah, we're gonna have to play this one by year. We'll see what the calendar looks like and identify that. But I think it was a really good experience. Even besides sort of the tech races, there were some really compelling, really competitive races elsewhere on the docket. I had a lot of fun just watching the racing, even outside of tech's competition. Like there were really good battles between Cal and Stanford and Texas and Florida right at the top of the table. It was just a really impressive weekend of like athletic competition.
I think kind of a summarizing note, I don't think Cal overpowered a ton of events, but man, they just brought depth, multiple entries in basically every single event. And when you sift through all the points at the end of the day, they're getting a lot of shots to take. They're scoring a lot of points, and you don't need to win every event or break every record. As cool as it is to be, someone like I don't know, I'm trying to pull one off the top of my head, but let me scroll through. I want to find a real record breaker. Man, did we not get? We had multiple. I don't know why it's taking me this long.
There were a bunch. I think there was a Florida relay team that broke. Man. I
Saturday
tweeted some
was
of these,
a slow
but
day. Everyone must have been tired. I'm just scrolling through the results there. Point is, there was a lot of good records, and you don't have to spit out one of those every day. But if you can, if you got the depth to just bring it, that's what wins at the end of the day. Like
I mean, you get points for being in a consolation final as long as you don't DQ. And at the end of the day, it's not an average points that wins; it's a sum, right? Mm-hmm. So every single point counts regardless of how you get it. And that's just something, like I said, the depth is important, or like both of us are saying, the depth is important. And that's something that tech needs to start or develop over the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know where the meet is next year offhand?
That's a great question. Let me look it up. NCAA Swimming Division 1. Oh, they have announced the host for 23 to 26. So the future men's sites are Minneapolis, then Indianapolis, then Washington State University. Huh.
I was not aware that Wazoo had a swim program, honestly.
But it's in King County. I think Washington State's just hosting it in Seattle then. Yeah, never mind. Federal.
Oh, that's cursed. That's so cursed.
Then 2026 back in Atlanta. Tech usually picks up one every cycle or so. And then 2023, it's Knoxville, Athens, Federal Way, so Washington State, and then Atlanta. So the next time
on the women's side?
Yeah, the next time it'll be both in the same site will be Federal Way in 2025 and then Atlanta 2026. Tech almost always hosts for both of them. I just think it's interesting that Nielsen Aquatic only ever really seems to host for the women up in Athens, but go figure.
Meh. I like it better when we host things, personally.
Yeah, I'm just, it's odd. But if you're the GAC, the Greensboro Aquatic Center, you got to be pleased. They hosted D2 this year, and then they're hosting D3 the next 3 years after that. So
I think they also hosted D1 last year.
Yeah.
I want to say, they hosted D1 last year.
Yep, they did.
And they had ACCs. It was like, there were like 3 or 4, there was like a month where Georgia Tech swimming was just at the same pool.
Yep. Except this year, that was our pool, and that was kind of cool. It's been a fun month.
Yeah, but
a lot of good swimming.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Let's move on to the golf course. Your 11th ranked Georgia Tech golf program was in Palo Alto at the Goodwin. I think that's an invitational that was hosted by Stanford. They finished tied for 6th, 1 under par, and 11 shots over the leader. They were 4th the last time I checked. I think that was on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. But unfortunately, they only had 1 under par golfer on Saturday, which that'll hurt. That'll hurt on the last day. Do you have any high level thoughts about this finish and where the program is going from here?
I mean, top 6 at an event like that is not really a bad place to be. I think we've seen this from golf as much as anyone, that it can very much just come to how everything lines up, so in terms of like if it's disappointing or anything like that, you got Stanford, top 15 team in Washington in front of you. And it's not great to, let a Nevada or an SMU or an Oregon pass you, but I don't know. It's how you're playing on any given day. And I don't think Tech played all that poorly either. So I wouldn't write too much into it. It's a regular season tournament. They're just out there getting good experience. So I wouldn't complain.
Yeah, and I think they also entered a couple other golfers on the team as individuals. One of them I think did go under par. That's at least what I saw in the report. So it would have been nice to have that in the clubhouse.
Yeah,
It would be nice to have that in the clubhouse.
And so if Andy Mao would have been scoring for Tech rather than being Reuter, I believe that probably would have moved Tech up 3. But even then, I guess moving up 3 strokes, that's a place. But you're kind of slicing things a little thin. If you're slicing dices too much. Golf it's about the wind and it's about the vibe, and obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but we've seen them play some pretty great golf this year. So I'm not gonna. I don't know. I feel like I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, but I don't think it's a disappointing weekend. Top 6, if they were a little further down, I'd be a little bit like not alarmed, but concerned. But
let me read off the competition for you just to get an idea of who Tech was facing at the Goodwin in Palo Alto. Number 9 Washington, number 14 Stanford, BYU, Cal Poly, Colorado, Denver, Drexel, FAU, Hawaii, Hilo, Howard, Long Beach State, Miami of Ohio, Nevada, Northwestern, Oregon, Rutgers, St. Mary's, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose State, SMU, UC Davis, UCLA, Washington State, and Wofford.
Well, California may not be ranked right now. That's a team that we've seen in the rankings quite a bit in the last few years. Colorado's not a bad team. BYU's not a bad team. It's not the best, but I don't want to harp too much on.
It's still competitive.
These guys.
All right. Let's move on. Just to wrap up with golf, they will be at the Calusa Cup in 2 weeks. That's a tournament that we've seen them at a bunch of times recently. I think that's one that they hit every year. So we'll have updates in a couple weeks on them. Let's move on to the track. It was a split squad week. Part of the team went to the Raleigh Relays, and part of the team went to the Tallahassee Relays. What you got for me?
Yeah. They had a pretty solid weekend. 4 event wins is great. Nicole Fegans won the 10K at the time of 33:00.89. Oof, that sounds not a lot of fun. But she ran really well. 33 minutes is just a long time to be running. Got Shani Papacosta, women's high jumper. She won that. That's always great. Carla Duplessis, who's really, I don't know how we got to extremely high quality in the same event, but I'll take it. Really seen some great depth there. The men, McKinley Thompson, high jump was very good as well. Miguel Schlicht, the men's 5,000 meter, and then also got second in the 5,000. That would be Devin Wade. So all good. Honestly, seems pretty not surprisingly good, but they didn't really have their best indoor season. They kind of had some injuries, some inconsistency. But yeah, no. And then wrapping up the weekends, Henrik Anderson finished second in the 1,500 meter. We had second, third, and fourth in the 800. That'd be Harrison Foltz, Mac Bloodworth, and Parker Buchheit. And then the 400 for the women was good. Aline Solayan did win the 400 meter. So that's always solid. It's I don't know. I feel like we've had more to say about these two meets than we have in a while, and both against some pretty strong competition. So I'm not going to complain about that one bit.
Absolutely. And then they'll be against similarly tough competition at Florida Relays this next weekend too. So it'll be a good opportunity to see what they can do as again, all these sports head into the back half of their schedules in the later business part of the year.
Yep. Ain't that the truth?
Let's move on to another program that spent some time in a beachy locale. Women's tennis was in Charleston this week. They are ranked 34th in the nation. They played the College of Charleston and Charleston Southern, and just kind of quietly took care of business. 6-0 win versus College of Charleston, 5-0 win versus Charleston Southern. Anything to report from there?
Not a ton. This is exactly what they needed to do. Not that losing a point would have been bad, but these are two teams you need to take care of business against. The women were also kind of, I guess, in the market for a couple of wins. The men, honestly, probably we could say would be two. The women are now 11-5, which is more than good enough. Just trying to get to that 500 and knock in some quality wins. But from here on out, they do have some opportunities to get those good wins. UGA comes to town midweek. Obviously, Clemson, Duke, solid programs. North Carolina, that's one to circle for the 10th. Virginia on the 17th, Virginia Tech also as well. So definitely have to take care of business with 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 remaining. Keep the head above water, try and get a 4-2, 5-1 stretch. I think would be really, really good and put themselves maybe even in the position to have like a decent seed for the ACC tournament. And with, I believe, 13 teams, you want to make sure that you're that you're in the mix for a playing fewer games, getting those buys, not running into the number 1 seed until as late as possible, stuff like that.
Yeah, that sucked last year, huh?
They had a shot to win the conference title, but that's the rub, I guess.
Well, we'll see if they can do it coming up later this year. Like you said, the midweek is versus Athens, and then next weekend they will play Clemson. Both of those will be at home. Let's switch over to the men's side. They are 51st in the nation at the last ranking period. They face Clemson and Boston College this week and dispatched them without much trouble, seemingly. Yep. What you got for me there?
They needed some wins there too. Tech does have still 6 more matches left on the men's side: Duke, North Carolina State, Wake Forest, Miami, and Florida State. And they've got a little bit of work to do. Given that they're 51st, are going to need to do some moving and shaking, if you will, to get themselves into the picture. But I think this is still a team that has at least a glimmer of tournament hopes. And at the very least, they'll see Anders Martin, Marcus McDaniel, and some of the lads picking up singles and doubles draws. So that's solid as well. But I think the team tournament the team title is really what people would like to be in the mix for. I think this team can handle it. I think they've shown in the past that they have tournament potential. It's just, with Florida State, Miami, Wake, NC State, North Carolina, and Duke left, I think you got to pick up. You definitely have to go above 500 because you got to finish above 500, and nothing's guaranteed in the ACC tournament. But picking up some sort of ranked win would be pretty key as well. It was really tough to lose to Notre Dame, Louisville, and then Virginia, 3 straight 4-3 decisions. So, and then UGA too on the 13th of February. That was, they've really challenged themselves this year, but I think they do have a little bit of work left to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And the road to that ACC tournament starts at Duke on the 1st of April, and then at Chapel Hill at UNC on the 3rd of April. Road to the ACC tournament paved with spikes, it seems. Yeah.
A lot of tennis left to play in the next couple of weeks for both of these teams, and I don't know. Not that they're on the outside looking in, but both have some work to do, and I guess we'll see them on the flip side.
Absolutely. I think that about wraps it up for this week. Any other notes, news items?
I'm trying to think. Also, yes, I did have my really sloppy bracketology for women's softball. Louisville, Nebraska, Stanford, and Tech are your last 4 in. Obviously, lots can happen before then, but that's at least something to think about. And I think that's the first time I've said that about Tech since we started this podcast. So
They have not made a NCAA tournament since 2014.
I mean,
I think.
yeah, I don't think Georgia Tech was more than a glimmer in my eye the last time they were playing in the postseason. So
Yeah, so 2014 probably. It's been a long road getting from there to here.
yeah. But and we can really break this down over the summer when all's said and all's done. But really, the place that the road that was paved by women's basketball and then volleyball can also be followed by softball and can really show that we can compete. So I'm excited. I think this week will be a lot of fun, especially for them. If you are around Wednesday midweek, go check out women's tennis taking on UGA. That is at Ken Byers. Always great to see there. And then other than that, I mean, it's going to be a crowded week, right? We got some baseball at home. We got some at least midweek. We got some softball at home midweek, and then I guess mostly away on the weekend. But if you're around, those Tuesday, Wednesday tilts should be interesting to say the least.
Absolutely. On the way out, tell me about the March Madness bracket for theme songs.
Oh gosh, I realized I was supposed to post. I guess the Elite Eight on Friday, but I was very tired. So I went to bed because I was entertaining my parents who were in town, but love them. In terms of results from the most recent round, I am pulling these up because I am verbally stalling really quickly. I don't have the Twitter poll in front of me, but March Madness is taking care of business still. Heavy action and BCS will probably be decided by Twitter just because those were within a couple of votes of each other.
That was
SEC
close.
SEC on CBS is rolling on through. ESPN college football, like the pre-playoff one, handling the F1 theme. I accept that. Round ball rock and NFL on Fox. I'm actually going to go check Twitter on this one now because I think that might make the difference.
That's a close one. That is unexpectedly people really sentimental about the NFL on Fox theme.
Okay, the NFL on Fox theme isn't good though. That's my problem. No offense.
That's why it was ranked 18th, but it's beating the 2 seed.
Yeah, well, let's see. Round ball rock is it's going to lose by 1 vote. Oh my goodness.
Oh no,
that's tough.
Don't you juice it? Don't go vote now and juice it.
No, all the polls are closed. MLB on Fox was pantsing NBA on TNT.
That one's an easy
NFL
one.
NFL on CBS is just destroying the NHL on ESPN, which
that's
I disagree with, but whatever. And then the Olympic fanfare should handily run away with that. So Olympic fanfare versus NFL on CBS. I think that'll be interesting in the next round. And then you got MLB on Fox versus NFL on Fox. So that'll be a nice narrative one right there. Let's see anything else. ESPN college football versus SEC on CBS. Wow.
That's going to be, there's so much narrative. There's so much narrative. Sports writers everywhere in America are losing their minds here.
Yeah. Heavy action versus March Madness. I don't think that one will be that's going to be that might be a slaughter. I've been wrong before. That's what I'll say.
All right. Take us home. Plug our stuff. Let's get out of here.
From the rumbleseat.com for the written word. You can find us wherever fine podcasts are sold. You can email us at fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com or DM us at FTRS blog on Twitter. You can find me out and about in the wild. But yeah, in terms of the rest of the way, we'll see on the flip side, and should be an interesting week to come.